Sri Radha Madan Mohan ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hari 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 Bo.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Beautiful kirtan. Amazing. So welcome everybody to the program on Wednesday night. We're gonna speak from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So Om Agyanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripadamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Maravam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So today we're speaking about Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, text 66. If we can see that on the screen. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We can chant together. Sarvadharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvang Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. Sarvadharman, all varieties of religion. Parityaja, abandoning. Maham, unto me. Ekam, only. Sharanam, for surrender. Braja, go. Aham, I. Tvam, you. Sarva, all. Papebhya, from sinful reactions. Mokshaishyami, will deliver. Ma, do, worry. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. The Lord has described, purport. The Lord has described various kinds of knowledge and processes of religion. Knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, knowledge of the Supersoul, knowledge of the different types of orders and statuses of social life, knowledge of the renounced order of life, knowledge of non-attachment, sense and mind control, meditation, etc. He has described in so many ways different types of religion. Now, in summarizing Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that Arjuna should give up all the processes that have been explained to him. He should simply surrender to Krishna. That surrender will save him from all kinds of sinful reactions, for the Lord personally promises to protect him. In the 7th chapter, it was said that only one who has become free from all sinful reactions can take to the worship of Lord Krishna. Thus one may think that unless he's free from all sinful reactions, he cannot take to the surrendering process. To such doubts, it is here said that even if one is not free from all sinful reactions, simply by the process of surrendering to Sri Krishna, he is automatically freed. Did you hear that? To such doubts, it is here said that even if one is not free from all sinful reactions, simply by the process of surrendering to Sri Krishna, he is automatically freed. There is no need of strenuous effort to free oneself from sinful reactions. One should unhesitatingly accept Krishna as the supreme savior of all living entities. With faith and love, one should surrender unto him. The process of surrender to Krishna is described in Hari Bhakti Vilas. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyati iti visvaso goptritve varanam tata atmanikshepa karpanye satvida sharanagati. According to the devotional process, one should simply accept such religious principles that will lead ultimately to the devotional service of the Lord. One may perform a particular occupational duty according to his position in the social order. But if by executing his duty, one does not come to the point of Krishna consciousness, all his activities are in vain. Anything that does not lead to the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness should be avoided. One should be confident that in all circumstances, Krishna will protect him from all difficulties. Let me repeat that one. One should be confident that in all circumstances, Krishna will protect him from all difficulties. There is no need of thinking how one should keep the body and soul together. Krishna will see to that. One should always think himself helpless and should consider Krishna the only basis for his progress in life. As soon as one seriously engages himself in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness, at once he becomes freed from all contamination of material nature. There are different processes of religion and purificatory processes by cultivation of knowledge, meditation in the mystic yoga system, etc. But one who surrenders unto Krishna does not have to execute so many methods. That simple surrender unto Krishna will save him from unnecessarily wasting time. That simple surrender unto Krishna will save him from unnecessarily wasting time. One can thus make all progress at once and be freed from all sinful reactions. One should be attracted by the beautiful vision of Krishna. His name is Krishna because he is all attractive. One who becomes attracted by the beautiful, all-powerful, omnipotent vision of Krishna is fortunate. There are different kinds of transcendentalists. Some of them are attached to the impersonal Brahman vision. Some of them are attracted by the supersoul feature, etc. But one who is attracted by the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and above all, one who is attracted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna himself, is the most perfect transcendentalist. In other words, devotional service to Krishna in full consciousness is the most confidential part of knowledge. And this is the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Karmis, yogis, empiric philosophers, mystics, and devotees are all called transcendentalists. But karma yogis, empiric philosophers, mystics, and devotees are all called transcendentalists. But one who is a pure devotee is the best of all. The particular words used here, ma shuchaha, don't fear, don't hesitate, don't worry, are very significant. One may be perplexed as to how one can give up all kinds of religious forms and simply surrender unto Krishna. But such worry is useless. Did you like that purport? That's why we should read Prabhupada's books every day, because we will be able to avail ourselves of these devotional ecstasies of Srila Prabhupada. I mean, even if you study and research, you can't come up with this in 100 years because this is based on deep realization. Prabhupada puts all the information and so many nuggets, so many succinct key sentences in there that he just kind of nonchalantly slides in between. Have you noticed? That's why we have to study Prabhupada's books threadbare and take note of these important sentences. So this is a famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which is in the last chapter, the conclusion, the perfection of religion. And what is Krishna telling Arjuna? The first part people like a lot. Abandon all varieties of religion, right? Give up all religion. And everybody goes, yes, yes. But then the second part, just surrender unto me. Oh, okay. All right. That's a little too much, you know? Like he's asking for a little too much. He's asking for full surrender here. But what do you expect? This is the conclusion. This is a summum bonum. This is as good as it gets. So Krishna is really the perfect coach, teacher, psychologist, guru, and friend, because first he is telling Arjuna, just shed your load, just drop all this baggage, all these so-called dharmas, all these different so-called designations and duties that arise from these so-called designations. Just give them up because they're just weighing you down. Have you ever met a person who is heavily burdened by so many obligations? Have you ever felt like that yourself in your life? Huh? So the image that comes to mind is always like the donkey of a washerman, you know, like they go to the river and they wash the clothes and they pile up so much wet laundry on them that you basically can't see the donkey anymore. You just see some pairs of legs there on the bottom. And you think like if somebody drops one more cloth on him, he will certainly just collapse. So in a similar way, people taking on all these different burdens based on their designation and their false perception of self and their false obligations. False not because they're not real, but false because they're temporary. They're not for their ultimate benefit. And so they become preoccupied in trying to please everyone and everybody except the Supreme. And so even though they're trying to do their level best, at best, they gain what's called, you know, the foam in the mouth, apavarga. Apa, ba, ba, va, ma. It's all these symptoms, you know, from foam in the mouth to hard labor to exertion to ultimately death. That's the result of their hard labor. And that is not such a great result to achieve. So here Krishna is telling Arjuna, just give up all these different types of religion and just surrender unto me. Now it sounds very simple, isn't it? Just surrender unto me. But how often have we actually consciously made that decision that, yes, let me surrender to Krishna? And it's not because I have accepted a spiritual master and a spiritual path that now, from now on to the rest of eternity, I'm fully surrendered. Sometimes we catch ourselves how we either subtly or even very evidently start to renegotiate our surrender. Have you noticed that in yourself sometimes? You know, like we take shelter of a spiritual master and we say, okay, I'm yours. I'm your das or your dasi. I'm fully surrendered. I take full shelter of you and I give my life to you. But then, either because of negligence or because of attachment or because of anarthas that are coming up, we try to renegotiate and try to go back on that commitment, that vow that we have taken. So oftentimes it is why? It is because of fear. We're afraid. We're afraid that the economy will crash. We're afraid we're going to lose our job. We're afraid we're going to get kicked out of this country, kicked out of this house, kicked out of this body. There's so much fear. Have you noticed how much fear there is in this world? Even if you go into nature and you see animals, continuously fearful about survival and about food and about so many things. So this instruction of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, even though we have heard it so many times, but have we actually understood it? How many of you have been fearful in the last week? Raise of hands. How many of you have been fearful in the last 24 hours? I mean, if you start taking notes, there's like all kinds of stuff that you get fearful about, right? Like, did I lock my car? Did I lock my house? What if? But here, Krishna is saying that if you surrender unto me, I got you covered. I take care of your case. You got nothing to worry about. It's like a person who is declaring bankruptcy and he goes under that Protection Act, and that will take care of all his previous commitments. So in a similar way, when we surrender to Krishna, we are declaring to Krishna, okay, I've tried a few things and I won some, I lost some, and ultimately I come to the conclusion that I want to take full shelter of you. So you please engage me in your service, whichever way you please. But still, fear is coming up. Now, what does fear mean? F-E-A-R, this acronym, what does it stand for? Fear. It's false evidence appearing real. You can write that down. You can get that tattooed. False evidence appearing real. And that's fear. Because whenever we dvayam bhitya vinibeshata syat ishada petasya viparyayo smritihi. Can you bring up that verse on the screen? Bhayam dvitiya viniveshata syat ishad abitasya viparyo smritihi. Tanmaya Buddha Abhajetvam 11:2:37. Thank you, Shraddha Devi. Abhajetvam something. 11:2:37. Just now coming. Bhayam ditya biniveshatasya dishadapitasya viparyo smriti tanmaya to Buddha abhajetang bhaktyayika yesham gurudeva tatma. Fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the eternal illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency for illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipful deity and as his very life and soul. So there's a very beautiful verse in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, which shows us that when we get fearful, fear comes that when we misidentify our body with ourself. And that is the root cause of all fear. So fear is accepting this false evidence that appears as reality. Doesn't it appear that this body is me? Doesn't it seem like it? You ever look in the mirror and think like, yeah, that's you. But then as you grow older, then you start to think, well, I hope that's not me, because because I hope I'm more than, I'm better. I'm something. I told the story before. There was one devotee who giving a class, and there was one lady who she was pretty overweight and pretty much, out of it. And he said, and we're not this body. And she said, oh, thank God we're not this body. It was like an epiphany, like a revelation, big news for her. But if you would say this, I don't know how many people hear this on the news. Did you hear this on the debate yesterday? I'm not this body, and you're also not your body. So therefore, we shouldn't be fighting like cats and dogs. That's not one of the topics that's being discussed, right? So much false evidence, so many false arguments. They're just being put out there as if they were real. And what happens? It creates fear. People become fearful. They think, oh, if this is true, then what's going to happen? Or if that is true, then what's going to happen? So if we want to become free from fear, we have to bathe our intellect in the nectarine words that are emanating from the lotus lips of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this way, all our fears, all our anxieties, all our worries will be washed away. Just like when the monsoon comes and it washes away all the dirt, all the contamination, all the moroseness, it just gets completely washed away. So to bathe our entire existence in Krishna's instructions and in his compassionate, merciful words is very beneficial in overcoming this fear. But if we tune into other types of frequencies, into other types of discourses, then it's very easy that, again, fear will come up and we'll feel anxious, we'll feel depressed. So this is a beautiful purport, and I like to touch on a few points. This chapter obviously is the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna is wrapping up all the topics. So he's tying it all in and bringing it all to the point. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying that Krishna has explained all different types of knowledge of all different aspects. And now ultimately, he's asking Arjuna to fully surrender. Now we know in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Ramananda Roy was asked by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to speak about what is the goal and what is the perfection in life. He started off with speaking about Varnashram, duties that one has and obligations. And Mahaprabhu said, that's external. Keep on saying something better. So till eventually he got to the point where he said that we should hear and chant about Krishna. Mahaprabhu said, yes, this is very good. This is very good. You continue in this line. Go further in this topic. So Srila Prabhupada brings up the process of surrender from Hari Bhakti Vilas in this famous, beautiful verse, Anukulyasa Sankalpa Pratikulyasa Varjanam Rakshishyati Vishwasho Goptritve Varanam Tata Atmanikshepa Karpanye Sadvida Sharanagati. So here the different types of surrender are described from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. And do we have a translation for that verse? A little further down. The 6 divisions of surrender are the acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service, the rejection of unfavorable things, the conviction that Krishna, it's going all over the place, that Krishna will give protection, the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master, full self-surrender, and humility. So in case anyone wondered, what does surrender mean? Because if we hear surrender, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Fear.
Fear. Thank you. What else?
Exploitation.
Exploitation. Yeah. One more.
Failure, defeat.
Failure, defeat. Okay.
Safety also in some cases.
What's that?
Safety.
Okay. When I hear surrender, I always envision that that person with the gun pointing at somebody, and they say, okay, fine. I surrender. I'm very surrendered. Just put that gun down, okay? And then when they put the gun down, usually, at least in the movies, then they try to get back at them, right? And try to take revenge. So it's not considered as a very desirable quality, right? In general, if you hear, surrender is not a topic that's much discussed. But here we see, and if we can have the verse again, we can see how these are the 6 qualities and characteristics, the 6 activities that actually delineate or make up surrender. So if we want to become surrendered, this is what we ought to do. And can you put it a little bit more down? Because I have too many pictures here. Down. No. I mean, scroll up. Sorry. Scroll up. Up. I want to see the verse. Not the Sanskrit, the translation. A little more down. Down. Thank you. That's good. Perfect. So, accepting the things that are favorable to devotional service. All these 9 angas or parts of bhakti, that's what's favorable. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. These are favorable for devotional service. And also the activities that Rupa Goswami describes in his Upadeshamrita, Utsahanishya Daryat Tatat Karma Pravartanat Sangosyagat Satovrite Sadhya Bhakti Prasidati. And then, of course, rejecting unfavorable things that come in the way of our devotional service. So those are the first 2. It's always the yama and the niyamas. It's interesting to note, right? The do's and don'ts, they're the first 2. And then the conviction that Krishna will give us protection. Are we convinced of that? How often do I think that my body will give me protection? That my great job or my great bank balance or my insurance will give me protection? Or my country will protect me? Have you ever thought like that and then became a little disappointed? So in the Bhagavatam, this beautiful verse which says, Deha patra kalatradishu atma sainyeshu satsopi tesham pramatani danam pasyanapina pashati. They're considered fallible fighting soldiers. Like they look very nice, like toy soldiers, but if you poke them a little bit, they'll just fall over. They're not very strong. They're not very sturdy, although they look nice, but they're not really capable of doing a good job. Just like this body. Deha. Has your body ever given you trouble? Like
All the time.
how often? Like pretty much constantly, right?
Yes.
Like especially if you grow a little older, there's always a few things that are wrong with the body. It's never 100%. It's so funny. One of my friends, he sent me a Skype message and he said, "How are you?" And I replied to him that, this question can be answered in many different ways. If you ask me, how are you? So then his reply was, just say you're fine, okay? Everyone's got issues. And I was like, well, thank you for asking me, but you were the one who was asking me. How do I feel? How are you? So if we're honest, then there's always a few things that are wrong with the body, right? Not to speak of the mind, not to speak of our circumstantial, situational, and other types of issues that might arise. So the first illusion, the body is it's a breeding ground for disease. Doctors have books like this thick, just about any particular type of disease that you can get. It's amazing. Like Bhakti Charumaraj once said in a class that he gave, I believe it was in Philadelphia. He said, just like take any part of the body, like he said, take this earlobe. Take this earlobe. How much pleasure can you get from that earlobe? How much pleasure can you derive from it? Not that much, right? I mean, somebody might say, okay, you can hang some nice earrings on it, you know? Or some people think that if they have big earlobes, it's really beautiful. They put these blocks inside. Or like in Africa, they really put these big rings, you know? And they think like, yeah, this earlobe is really giving me some status, right? But usually when you think how much pain, how much trouble an earlobe can give you, huh? If your teacher or some of your parents pull on it, you know that example? The teacher gets the kids to hold on to each other's earlobes and pull tight if they fight. And then they realize maybe we should not cause trouble to each other and we should let it go. Or you can cut it, you can stab it, you can burn it. You can cause so much trouble just to an earlobe. Sometimes while shaving, you may cut yourself on your ear. It's very painful, very painful. I remember when I was young, many moons ago, and I was young and foolish because that goes together. And I thought, let me pierce my ear because some of my friends did it. And I thought, hey, if they can do it, I can do it too, right? That's what friends are for. They give you stupid ideas. So I took a safety pin and I just stuck it through my ear. And I thought, hey, that's cool. That's what the other kids are doing. I should be doing this too. And first of all, it was super painful to put it through because there's so many different layers of skin and you go like punk, 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 punk. It goes like through one by one. And then after a day or two, it got infected and it really got swollen and it became filled with pus. And I was like, even if this is supposedly a cool thing, I'm not up for it. Like I don't want this and I'm never going to do this again. So the point was the body can give you a lot of pain. Looking at the earlobe, how much pleasure and how much pain is there? The ratio is totally disproportionate, right? And so is for all the other faculties. So we have to conclude that the body is a breeding ground for disease and eventually it gets old and then it dies. So we should not make plans to take the body as our refuge or as our all in all. Otherwise, we'll become utterly frustrated. And you can see as soon as people age a little bit, they really get worried. Oh, there's some more wrinkle that appeared. Oh, I have some gray hairs here. Maybe I should dye them, And sometimes you see how they put so much dye, that like even their neck and their skin, becomes black from the dye that they put. Have you ever seen? Have you ever noticed? Or they get the wrong kind of dye, they get the wrong kind of color, and it goes off into some sort of a purple haze, into some other different type of shade. So the body is just, it's a tool, it's an instrument, and we can use it. But we should not think that it is what's going to give me ultimate happiness or perfection. And the same is true for our expansions of wife or husband or children or relatives. We think that they will really take care of us. But I just try to call one devotee in a nursing home And I realized how difficult it is to just get through to somebody, because there's no relatives who really want to take care of their elderly nowadays. I know in the Bay Area, there's a lot of nursing homes now for Hindus, where they can have their type of food and they can have their type of entertainment, their type of social activity, their type of, scene, because it's a big industry. So because the youth don't want to have the parents live with them, so they say, look, we're going to put you in this nice place and you're going to be really happy. And that's that. So we should not expect our relatives to be our saviors and the solution to all of our problems. Then what to speak of the government? Historically, it has been proven that more people have been killed by their own governments. You study world history, you do a research. More people in any country of the world have been killed by their own governments. So, not a good place where to put our hope and our aspirations in, especially not after yesterday night's debate. If you notice the kind of attitudes and the kind of qualities and the kind of discourse that's going on, there's no way that I would want to be caught up in this type of scenario. And I haven't even seen it, I just heard a few comments from a few people. So we should take shelter of the devotional service of the Lord. Balaram, can we again have the text? Just the translation. Yeah. No, not that one. The previous one. Yeah, that's good. So we got to be convinced that Krishna will give me protection. Can you bring it back? We're bouncing around. So that Krishna will give me protection. There is no other agency that can guarantee me that. You can have insurances for everything, but there is no insurance for protecting us from the cycle of birth and death. But Krishna is giving that assurance. And to accept the Lord as one's guardian or master, that I work for Krishna. I may have a job, I may have obligations, that's fine. But ultimately, I am trying to please Krishna. Krishna is the one who's looking after me, and he's my master and my worshipful Lord. I'm not putting somebody else on that pedestal. I'm not putting anyone else in that situation. So, and then full self-surrender, which means I wholeheartedly, I completely take shelter of Krishna. And in order to do that, humility is required, because without humility, nothing really works. So this is the translation. Many people have commented upon this beautiful verse. And
Prabhuji, can you speak more on full self-surrender? Why does it say self-surrender?
Full surrender. Prana artar diya vacha. Prana, my life. Then diya, my deeds. And vacha, my words. I dedicate everything to the Lord. Not just a part, not just a portion, but I'm giving myself wholly, fully. That is meant by full self-surrender.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
You're welcome. And this simple surrender unto Krishna will save us from unnecessarily wasting time. So that is a very interesting statement. But before we elaborate on that, are there any questions or comments to the monologue or anything that you have heard so far? I'm sure there's some interesting points that came up.
So, Prabhu, I understand you saying that Krishna will give protection and one has to be very convinced about that. But I don't see that. at least around me, like sometimes when devotees are put into difficulty, the way in which, at least from externally, like what they are facing is also same as what others are facing. So like for
Mm.
example, like whatever we see now, like so many people are dying, devotees are also dying. So okay, maybe after death they went to Krishna. I agree with that. May or may not, that we don't know, but the way in which they suffer also seems like any other people, sometimes even more. So how can I be faithfully think that Krishna will protect me, and what is actually the real protection?
Thank you. Very important question. Krishna is not there to save our bodies, because these bodies are meant to last for a certain time and then their time is over. So Krishna does save the soul, and it is hard to judge from an external point of view, as you've mentioned, because it looks like same, right? Like the same scenarios are playing out. But actually, it's not the case, because we can see how in almost each and every case, Krishna orchestrates some special arrangement, even when the devotee leaves their body. You know, he creates favorable circumstances because the devotee has dedicated his or her life to the service of Krishna. Like, I know from one devotee who I was together with. We traveled together, and I was very inspired by his surrender. He was an arborist. He was actually going to many different places in ISKCON and taking care of trees. And Padmapani is a Prabhupada disciple. He did a lot of service and he was very surrendered. And then he was near Alachua temple and he was riding a motorcycle. And a truck hit him full on frontal. And he got thrown off his bike and he landed in someone's garden. Now, listen to this. The
Sorry,
truck
Prabhu,
driver,
missed the last part. He rolled and then?
he rolled and he landed in the garden of somebody nearby the road, you know? The truck driver was a devotee. The garden in which he landed was a devotee's house. There was kirtan playing from the house. Devotees came outside and were there with him in his last moments before he left. Before he left Kalyapani, yes. Before he left this world. So how about that for a, dramatic exit from the world? And those of you who know him, he was a bit of a kshatriya type. He was a fighter type. And so Krishna orchestrated, you could say, the perfect exit for him to leave this world. And we have seen so many devotees. Dainiti Prabhu says that he was his first Sankirtan leader. Yeah. Yeah. And I drove with him from Vancouver up to Sharanagati, and we had a very, very sweet time together that we spent up there. And I met him again in the UK, and I met him in so many different temples where he was always doing the same thing, just taking care of trees and doing his bhajan. So very exemplary personality. And because he was surrendered to Krishna, so Krishna arranged it that he, there was apparently no disease, no suffering, no extraneous circumstances. And of course, we are like heartbroken and we are like, what happened? And why it happened? But Krishna knows what is best for his devotee. And he decides when it's time for us to go. So when we try to impose our own sense of morality or judgment or what is right and what is not right, how it's supposed to be or not, then we run into difficulties. We run into snags. So we have to know for a fact that Krishna has a plan for every jiva to come back to him. And those who cooperate with Krishna's plan, then it becomes very sublime. It becomes very conducive. And those who are obstructing and who are very contrary, for them, it takes longer. There's more pain involved. It's just prolonging their stay in the material world, so to speak. So to see that in the bigger context is important. Otherwise, we may think, oh, it's the same thing, you know, like everybody's doing the same thing and everybody goes through the same type of scenarios. But I've been with devotees, just like one time in Vrindavan. I did Govardhan Parikrama with Harinamananda Prabhu, my older brother and dear friend. And after that, we went from Govardhan to Vrindavan, and we went and we visited Buddhimanta. I don't know how many of you have heard of Buddhimanta, or if anyone of you have met Buddhimanta, but Buddhimanta was one of the first big book distributors. And he was going all over the world practically to teach others about book distribution. One time when he was in Los Angeles, he, just after Sankirtan, it was in the summer, he came back and he just took a shower and he put a dhoti on, and bare-chested he came into Prabhupada's room. And there's two versions of the story. One version goes that Prabhupada took off his own shirt and gave it to him. And another version is that he told his servant to get a kurta from his almirah and he gave it to him. But in any case, he got Prabhupada's shirt. And Prabhupada was very pleased with him. So later on, he was in Vrindavan dying from leukemia, which is a very debilitating, very painful, and a very intense disease. So when we were there, he was so affected by the disease that his consciousness was kind of fading in and out. But when he started talking about Prabhupada, he became as clear and lucid as the midday sun. And at one point, he started laughing and laughing and laughing. And I didn't know what was he laughing about. And he told to us that, now you have to imagine, his whole body is on fire, like he's completely in pain. But he's seeing here two young guys who were distributing a lot of books back then. And it felt to me like he was like Bhishma Dev, lying on a bed of arrows. And he's seeing Yudhishthira and Arjun, and he's just saying pleasing words in order to, and he's so happy to see us. And he made it all about us. He did not show any discomfort. He did not speak about why am I sick and why is this happening to me. So he just was speaking in a way in order to make us feel good. So he started laughing and laughing and laughing. And then he said, you know what? I only distributed a few books and Prabhupada gave me his own shirt. Now you're distributing thousands of books. What would Prabhupada give you? And he kept on laughing. So we were very touched and impacted by his, not just his magnanimity, but about how transcendental, how he detached he was from the whole situation. Then later on, we went back to the West and we continued book distribution. And we heard that he had passed away on Shivaratri, very auspicious day in Vrindavan. And we were surprised to know that that was the day, even though it was not a marathon day, every one of us distributed the most amount of books in that year. I remember I did 255 Mahabig and Big books, 2 Bhagavatam sets and 1 CC set. I was going door to door and people were throwing money at me. I didn't know what was happening. Everybody was just smiling and saying, yes, 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 I take it. And later on, I realized that because Buddhimanta had given his life to book distribution, on the day where he went back to Krishna, Krishna said, today, no one can refuse. Everyone has to take books. And it happened just because Krishna made that arrangement. So we can see how Krishna is orchestrating and taking personal attention and care and intervention in the life of his devotees. Just like this morning, we're reading in the story of Ajamil, how he witnessed this debate. Speaking of debates, this argument between the Vishnudutas and the Yamadutas. And all of a sudden, everybody leaves, and he's not dead. He's still there. And he goes to Hardwar, and he starts getting serious about his spiritual practice. And then he achieves perfection. So, which shows that even sometimes people may have lapses. They may have some gap years, or there is some scenic route that all of a sudden becomes seemingly important. But eventually, Krishna makes sure that his devotee comes out on the winning side. Now, how he does that, that is his magic. That is his prerogative. But we should have that faith. And by studying all these case studies from all these devotees that we have witnessed it so far in our own lives and from scripture, we should be able to conclude that, yes, this is not just some nice type of statement, but it is a fact. I don't know if this helps and answers your question, but...
No, it helps, Prabhu. It really helps. I was also thinking about the disciple of Indradyumna Swami who passed away a few years ago. I don't remember her name. Like she was just going in the auto, and then, as you said, the truck came.
Guru Maharaj to go for parikrama, and then she just left right there.
It's like he just went and touched the bar. That's it, and then she's gone at the feet of God. Amazing. Thanks for reminding that. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, so we should remember all these devotees. Any other reflections or questions? Thank you, Gandharvika.
Hare Krishna, Navina Nirada Prabhu. This is Asray Madhav Das.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So, I really like that acronym, FEAR. Yeah, false evidence appearing real. That is a nice acronym to remember whenever we have fear.
Or whenever people want to bombard us with false evidence.
False evidence. Yeah, correct. Yeah. I was having also one question along the lines of Gandharvika Mataji, a little bit different though. Sometimes, there are people who come to this joint ISKCON and thinking that okay, if this thing is true, what Krishna is saying, then let me have some investment there as well. But then I want to keep my practical life, whatever the investment there, I don't want to, leave that 100% because I'm not so sure. Because if this is right, who knows? Or, the Krishna is saying that is right, who knows? We don't know which one. So I want to invest in both, almost like, investing in the stocks and financial investments, right? Reducing risk.
Yeah, you have to spread your what is
risk.
It called?
Risk.
Your risk. Exactly. Risk. Yeah. But
so
it's the wrong attitude because.
So what happens to those kind of people basically? Does Krishna make sure that he is? Yeah, please, you please answer. Yeah, what happens to those?
Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, "Ye yatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham mavartate manusya partha sarvasha." So that as you surrender, I reward you accordingly. So if you go in 50%, then Krishna says, "Okay, fine, that's what you get." And if you go in 10%, then Krishna says, "Okay, nice." So depending on how much we surrender, to that degree, Krishna reciprocates. Of course, we know that especially Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very merciful and very magnanimous. And Srila Prabhupada has several times made the statement that even if you can't give 100%, one time he gave a class about full surrender, and devotees felt a little disheartened. They felt a little, 100%? I mean, come on, let's get real, 100%. That means everything, I got to give up all my Maya. So then he said, okay, 80%, And then he was walking down from the Vyasa-san, and he said, okay, 70. Does anybody know what's the last number that he stopped at? Was it 50 or 60? I don't remember. But he kind of made some concessions, you know, and he said, okay, this much, but not less.
Not less. Yeah.
Just like he said, just chant 16 rounds. We should then chant more, but that's the minimum. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving the assurance that if you try to build Mayapur temple and spread the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he will personally come and bring that person back to Godhead. So we are definitely voting. In November, we're definitely voting for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's special mercy. That's what we're voting for. We've already submitted our ballot that I am voting for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's special mercy. That is what I am confiding in. So we should not do the calculated thing where we think like, oh, spiritual life is risky and I might lose everything, so let me try and play games. It's natural that we have obligations. It's natural also that we may have attachments, but we can work with those and we can purify them. We can Krishnaize them. And the more we move on in life, we'll actually see how Krishna takes care of everything perfectly. And he actually brings us closer to him. But Prabhupada oftentimes was criticizing gentlemen in India who were very wealthy, and they gave their whole wealth to their family members and told them, just send 100 rupees to Vrindavan every month, and I will live on that. And they were claiming to be very renounced sadhus, you know. Meanwhile, they had left everything to their family members and relatives, and were just taking a little pension to have nice sadhu life in Vrindavan. So if Krishna sees that, okay, you're Krishna not just sees what we offer him, but he sees what we're holding back. So we should try to wholeheartedly surrender to him. Otherwise, if we still have these attachments, then that is what will weigh us down, that will slow us down in our devotional service. That's why it is stated in Shastra that Krishna will eradicate and go after the last vestiges of attachments that are lingering around, even our ideas in our head that maybe there is still some options, there is still some options, some possibilities. I still keep a few options open, like that. But if we're real, we should understand, you know, especially as we grow older, there's nothing new under the sun. We've already experienced everything, you know. So we should actually become a little more detached and wiser. And it should become easier for us to wholeheartedly surrender to Krishna, right?
Yeah.
But then oftentimes that's not the case, because we think, oh, I need some security. I need to, you know, take care of myself. But how much security is there? Just because we got money in the bank, or just because we have some real estate, does that make you secure? I mean, it can be over any moment. There is no guarantee.
The wildfire.
The what?
The wildfire that recently, you know, kind of burned down so many homes, right? So
yeah. So face everything and rise, or forget everything and run. The choice is yours. I like that. Yes. So Krishna is lovingly calling his devotees, and when he sees that we still have some attachment, he's helping us to overcome them. But if we are having to deal with material energy, material nature is a heavy taskmaster. She's relentless. She will treat us harshly, severely. So whereas Krishna, he has a very intelligent, a very genius way of how to arrange situations. So thank you for your reflections and questions. Do we have some more? We got another 15 minutes. I like the grand finale, how Prabhupada, in the end, he says, the particular words here used are Mashuchaha, don't fear, don't hesitate, and don't worry, are very significant. One may be perplexed as how one can give up all kinds of religious forms and simply surrender unto Krishna. But such worry is useless. So we should not be worried. We should just dedicate. Yes, Shraddha, you have a question? Or you're worried?
Oh yeah, I'm always worried. So thank you so much for such an interesting class, Navina. I always look forward to these fantastic occasions. I was just thinking about the topic that you brought of fear, and it was really an eye opener when you were asking the question that, did you worry last month, last week, and then last 24 hours? And I was like, even up to coming into this class, I was worrying about and fearing, here and there certain things. And I was also thinking about how in the advertisement industry, especially for the insurance and the insurance folks, how they, kind of touch upon that fear that we have. And
capitalize, the whole industry that capitalizes and exploits the fear of people.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta have spares. You gotta have 2 cars. You gotta have a backup house. What if this one burns down? You gotta have another one,
Yes.
You gotta have 2 of everything, or 3 or 5, or buy it in every color,
Yes.
Or right in front of our home. Then suddenly, in the middle of the night, somebody came in the opposite direction and ran into the car. So if I never feared about that, but still it happened. So I was like, if they hadn't had insurance, then like I would have lost my money, right? Like whether we
so many
fear or we don't fear,
happen.
things just happen in this material world.
Yeah, but you can have insurance but still not have fear, meaning, it's not contradictory. You still take precautions. Like if it rains outside, you take an umbrella, but you also know you may get a little wet. So you try to safeguard and you try to arrange things properly. At the same time, you also realize that ideal is utopia. It just doesn't exist in this world. And I know plenty of people who have insurance, but then something else happens and that's not covered. And they're still standing in the rain, so to speak. They're still out of luck.
I was also thinking that after you take the insurance, then the fear is that what if the insurance company goes bankrupt? And it happened when we had a tornado, I think in North Carolina, that the insurance company said we can't.
What if your investment banker runs away with all of your money, and takes a little vacation in Vegas or in Macau, and goes absconding, and the trust fund and everything is bye-bye. It has happened to many people, even who we know. Now, to share some of my fears, I mean, it's unbelievable to think that the pushings of the senses and the mind will ever cease. It seems like it's explained like the waves, the waves, these vegans, these pushings, vacha vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam, udarapasta vegam. These pushings are continuously there. Have you ever felt like you've been pushed around by the urges of the senses? Like pretty much every day, right? Common day scenario. We've just taken it for granted. Okay, I'm just being pushed around. But it's not so nice to be pushed around. So it's like the waves of a river. They're just nonstop. But I was giving class in Isanga for devotees in Hawaii and other places on Monday morning. And you can maybe read it as your homework. 4th canto, text 22nd chapter, text 39. And in the purport, 4:22:39. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives this beautiful analogy where he says that even though the urges and the pushings of the senses are very strong and relentless, like the waves in a river, when the river meets the ocean, and the ocean, the tide of the ocean floods the river, then all these waves and ripples of the river they subside, and they become completely flooded by the tide of the ocean. And he was giving the analogy that if we engage ourselves in the devotional service of the Lord, then the satisfaction and taste and happiness that we experience in devotional service will completely flood us, and it will practically bring the waves of the river to a halt. It will just stop it. Of course, Prabhupada said it much better than I did. So you can just read 4:22:39 and purport. And it's a famous verse. It's very beautiful. It's Sanak Kumar instructing Maharaj Prithu. And wanted to share how we can make a difference by going out of our way and going the extra mile to try to take care of people. A few days ago, or recently, I was in Santa Cruz distributing books at the farmers market, and I met a young man with his daughter. I mean, young, middle-aged, like me. It's still young. So, and and as he was walking back to his car, we started talking, and I said, I'm from Switzerland. And he said, you know what? I was also in Switzerland. So I said, really? Where were you? And he said, name of a particular town. I said, you know what? I grew up in that town. And I asked him what he was working. And he said he was working for a bank as a translator. And I said, which bank? And I knew exactly where it was because it's the bank where my parents were banking. So I knew everything about his job and what he was doing there. So he thought it was kind of peculiar. So anyway, I gave him some books. He gave a donation and he gave me some fruit, and it was very nice. And then at the end, just before parting, he looked at me and he said, aren't you and I said, yeah, I'm a Hare Krishna. And he said, you know what? I like to tell you something interesting. He was at a big music festival in Switzerland, and he was there with a few friends. And that just shows you how friends can be your worst enemies. So they went camping at this music festival, and one moment he came back to the tent and the tent was gone. One of his friends took the tent, all his things, his money, his documents, everything. He was literally left with the clothes on his body. And he said that he went to the Hare Krishna tent and they gave him food. They gave him a sleeping bag. They gave him shelter, and they took care of him. And he was so grateful for that now this impression is there, and he has appreciation and respect for the devotees for life. Why? Because the devotees went the extra mile and went beyond the call of duty, extended themselves. In other words, they surrendered to the situation. They saw it as Krishna's arrangement. They didn't think this person as a botheration or as a nuisance, but they saw it as an opportunity for service. And it had great impact on that person. So in a similar way, if we can learn how to extend ourselves and see every situation in life, even as it says, never waste a good crisis, even the current situation, we should see it as an opportunity for intense bhajan, for doing things that ordinarily we could not do, because it's kind of like a sabbatical, like there's so many things that you can't do right now. So it should actually give us a whole lot more time to do extra things that we never got to, and see it as an opportunity. I mean, what would you rather have? Would you rather see it as an opportunity, or would you rather see it as crushing defeat and like just another tragedy in life? If you'd had the choice, which one would you choose? Opportunity or tragedy? What do you like better? Opportunity sounds more exciting, right? Sounds more inspiring. So in this way, A devotee even sees difficulties as opportunities. I was just reading the other day that Mother Teresa was saying that she sees all the hardship, all the trouble, and all the setbacks. She sees them as she was saying, loving kisses from Christ, or we can say as Krishna's blessing. And that's the right way how to see it. Otherwise, if we see it as the cruel hand of material nature, of karma, then it's kind of demotivating. It kind of pushes us down. So Krishna is taking personal interest in the lives of each and every one of his devotees, and that is a fact. So there is nothing outside of his control. Otherwise, if we start thinking, oh, so who was the cause? Who caused all this trouble? That's why when there was the discussion between Maharaj, who was it, Parikshit and Bhumi Devi, who has caused this? Who has brought you into this state? She said it's a complicated issue. You can't just put blame and say it's his fault. So, any concluding questions or remarks? So we spoke about surrender. What is surrender, and how we can engage ourselves more and more in sweet surrender. What are the different stages of surrender, from doing things that are favorable, giving things up that are unfavorable, engaging in devotional service, to full surrender of the self, always being anxious to serve Krishna, not wasting time, taking shelter of this process wholeheartedly. Really helping me to remember Krishna, to be appreciative and aware of Krishna's presence, and then to try to help others and try to help them along in their spiritual journey, which will attract the Kripa Shakti of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our previous acharyas, who have taken a keen interest in each and every one who is helping them to spread this Sankirtan movement. Sometimes certain disciples of Prabhupada, even in leading these positions, ran into difficulties. And one of them who came back, so some people, they thought that, or he even himself thought, how can I be worthy? Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected certain people who were in the renounced order, who could not follow through with their vows. Prabhupada said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God. He could do that. But I am dependent on each and every person who can help me in my mission. So I will never reject anybody. So that should give us hope. That should give us solace. That should give us inspiration. We shouldn't take leniency, but we should be aware that the mercy of the spiritual master is practically unlimited. Gurudev Kripa Bindu Dio Koroedase Trina Pekayati, and so on. So thank you for your kind invitation to join you. I feel like at home, seeing familiar faces. And
Kautuk Karnava has some question.
Okay,
Hare Krishna, bro.
You got 1 minute for the question and for the answer.
I just have a reflection, bro. Thank you so much for the nice session. It was so many nice points. I really liked your example of the tide in the ocean. As you said, it is in the purport of 420 to 39. So when we have the pleasure from devotional service, it will overflood the urges of the senses. So I feel that if on a certain day, for example Saturday or Sunday, I have some service to do in the temple, maybe Sunday table or Saturday going for Sankirtan, I can really feel that that kind of schedule, it helps in controlling the urges of the senses, who otherwise would have put me in a lot of difficulties. And even in my regular work days, when I have some schedule of sadhana, so my senses are not troubling me that much, because of that schedule of devotional service, I know that I have control over them, which otherwise would not have happened. So thank you, bro, that makes so much sense.
Thank you for sharing your heartfelt realizations. That's why we're grateful that Prabhupada has given us so much scope for devotional service. It is practically unlimited, and we can always be engaged in service. If you don't feel engaged, call Kautu Karnava and ask him for service. He will give you service. There's so many opportunities. Thank you very much for your kind attention and participation. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. And try to read 422:39. It's a beautiful verse and purport, and Prabhupada very poetically gives elaboration on this important topic. And if in doubt, choose sweet surrender. It is a acquired taste, but it is sugar-free, and it's always available, always available. And it's more tasty than humble pie, sweet surrender. So choosing sweet surrender, that should be our vote. That's what we're voting for, and that's what we're hankering and looking for. And believe it or not, Krishna will make it available. He can do the magic. He always gives us the option, isn't it? He says, okay, if you wanna do it my way, all right, this is the opportunity. Like he told Arjuna at the end of the Gita, okay, this is what I would like you to do, but you have other options. You make up your mind and you decide. If there is anything unclear, I'm happy to explain it to you again. So if there is things that are still unclear, if we're still hazy, read Bhagavad Gita every day and all the doubts will clear up and it will become easier to do that sweet surrender. Thank you very much. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Thank you very
Srila
much for
Prabhupada.
see you.
Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Haribo.
Hare
Or Parimanande.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All goes. Haribol Dainidhi. Prabhu. Hare Krishna.